Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 3 Steps to Build a $1 Million Database with MAPS coaches Steve Schlueter and Tammi Juengst. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS Fast Track YouTube channel. Currently, everyone's on mute. However, if you have any questions for your coaches, please type them into the chat box. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or our other coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's all for me, coaches. Take it away.
All right. So, hey, let's get started. Tammi, what do we got for these guys today?
Oh my gosh. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. We are here to help you build the $1 million database. We're going to walk you through some simple steps. They are foundational steps because you know what? The fundamentals and the basics don't change. And yet sometimes we have to dig in and really hone those in. So Steve, let's dig in.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do a little video adjustment here real quick for us. And then we're spotlighted and good to go. Now, here's the interesting thing, Tammi. You know, it's this title that we have today, $1 Million Database. That sounds real complicated.
Does it?
I don't know. I think we ought to make it really simple. What do you think out there in land? You think we ought to make it really simple?
Let's make it simple, Steve.
Let's make it simple. We're going to make it simple. Because you know, work that's simple and fun gets done, I think you always say, Tammi. And so as we jump into this today, we're going to really kind of dig into the $1 Million database. And we're going to kind of offer you a challenge today. There's kind of a mission-driven topic we're going to talk about today called the 700 Challenge. And it's the foundation of your building $1 million database. And today, Tammi, we're going to talk in terms of gross $1 million. And, you know, the way you build a really great big business is you got to build a really great small business. And it's in those fundamentals that we set the stage for having, you know, the ability to have a 7-figure GCI coming out of this thing called our database. So I'm going to go to my slides and let me go ahead and pull that up real quick. And, you know, it's just, where's the button when you're looking for it? So there it is. So
here we go.
And so we got our New Year's superpower capes on there, Tammi. So ready to go. And it doesn't take superpowers to build $1 million database. And we're going to get into 3 steps. We're going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk about the fundamentals. We'll get into some specifics and also some just strategy. And before we're done today, we're gonna give you an actual conversation or two that might really help you have these ideal conversations we've got to have with our database today. And then also we got an offer for you. If you like what you get today, we'd love to talk to you about joining our community at Never Ending Referrals, where Tammi and I are the co-coaches. Tammi, tell them a little bit about Tammi real quick before we get into this.
Oh, goodness. So a little bit about Tammi. 19 years at Keller Williams. Home base is in North Carolina. I am in Lake Norman, North Carolina. I am a MAPS Bold coach. Always looking for new Bold coaches. I'm never going to miss the opportunity to do that because I'm the director of talent there as well. So looking for talented Bold coaches. Keller Williams University master faculty and the co-coach with you in Never Ending Referrals. There
you go. All right, Steve Schlueter, and you know, what do they call me, Tammi? A KW Classic or something like that. I've been, over 24 years with Keller Williams, and you know, starting my career at Keller Williams, was one of the top 20 RE/MAX agents in the state of Texas, and I got courted by a gentleman named Gary Keller to be a team leader for his Austin Northwest Market Center, where I did that for 4.5 years. Led the early development of the Heartland region, have the privilege of being an owner and operating principal and involved in 2 market centers. Also lead the productivity team. I see Jason Vincent's on here, one of our favorite people, one of my coaches, and we lead the productivity team in the 980 agent San Antonio City View office. And like you, Bold coach, Keller Williams master faculty, and then get to do this our Never Ending Referrals together with the amazing Tammi Juengst. So that's about us, but let's get into this, Tammi, because they're not here for us. They're here for 7 figures. And so we're going to go to work on that. And let me pull the slides back up. And so as we jump into this, 3 steps to $1 million database, you know, Tammi, many of our lessons when we do a single lesson like this, we start with this thing we call the trust triangle. And why is this so fundamental to every discussion that we have with folks?
You know what? People work with people they like people they know, and they hire people that they trust. And, you know, we are helping people through most likely their largest financial transaction. And yet, are we really hitting all three of the cylinders, so to speak, of this trust triangle in order for them to know, like, and trust us? And it's not all about just spitting out all of the real estate stuff. It's everything else as well.
Well, Tammi, and you say this, frequently. You say when we nail this, and we nail this at a high level, we go from being Tammi, the real estate agent, to what?
Tammi, my realtor. And when they take ownership of you, guys, you have it. I mean, when people literally, they invite you into family things and they call you my realtor instead of describing you as a realtor, then we've got it.
Yeah. So we're going to come back to this in just a second. Before we do, I just want to make a comment. And, one of the things that you're hearing a lot in Keller Williams right now is like the 201 club. Do you have at least 201 contacts in command? Because when they look at the data, or any CRM, just have them in a CRM. We're kind of CRM agnostic. I mean, just get one, right? And use it. And yet, command is you got it, use it, put it to work. And when we hear about this, getting these soft skills, getting them in a database is one thing. Getting the soft skills and the hard skills, as my friend Jason says, and building the foundation so rock solid is what's going to make those people in the database really light up for you. And so if we're going to build $1 million database, it really begins with, what are you doing? If you just have 100 now, or you're taking on the 201 challenge and you got 201 or 202, it's what you do with those 201 and 202 that matters. It's just not having them. And by the way, I'm going to say it's not just as simple as putting a neighborhood nurture smart plan. It's so much more than that. And so I'm going to go back to this, and we're going to set the stage for how we're thinking, a foundational way of thinking, as my coach Jason would say over there, to how you got to think and how you have to think strategically to make this pay off. And so when we go back to this thing called the trust triangle, let's look at these 3 points, Tammi. So logic says, I know you can do it. Your reasoning and judgment are sound. Now, Tammi, right now, who do they need us to be logically? The people in our database, we're not just a person that can find them a house today. Who do they need us to be?
No, they need us to be their trusted advisor, their economic trusted advisor, really understanding the local market, spending the time to understand the local market, understanding the mortgage trends, being able to go back and talk about the cycles that real estate goes through. We really have to be able to demonstrate all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and of course, and so you got to think, so here's how you think strategically. What is my plan to make sure that they know that my reasoning and judgment are sound? What is my plan to make sure that they experience me understanding the dynamics of the market, the impact of inflation on interest rates, where interest rates going past, present, and future, taking a position, with folks and not just reporting it, interpreting it, and helping them understand what it means for them. This is a place right now where you can develop the logic piece so well because there's confusion. And the confusion isn't how do I win one of 20 offers anymore. It's what do I even do? And you get to be that person that helps them navigate that. So Tammi, empathy. Let's go to the other point on the trust triangle. It says, I believe you care about me and my success. How does this show up?
Well, it shows up in them feeling that you care, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And empathy is being able to see something through someone else's eyes. It's different than sympathy, right? Empathy is very different. It's being able to step into really seeing something the way someone else sees it and understanding the way that they would think because of the way they see it.
Mm-hmm. And then, Tammi, there's this authenticity piece. this is the struggle we find. It's for years, Tammy and I have done this informal little study of how many people are actually having the real conversations that build the empathy, that build the logic with the people in their database. And Tammy, it's often a really, really low percentage. And that means we're missing these opportunities to develop these points that in a way that's going to get us the top return in our database. And what does this mean, authenticity? I experience the real you.
It means that you're being yourself. I think that, all of us, you, me, everyone here today, everyone has, I'm going to say it, everyone has that BS detector, right? I mean, believability scale, not what you all think.
I thought you'd be a naughty.
And yes. And yet we all know when someone is not being genuine to their own self, meaning you're attempting to be someone else. And I think many times when we're in this industry, Steve, we feel like when we're having conversations with people that, oh my gosh, if I learned a conversation or I'm following, a conversation framework or what we used to call scripts, then they don't sound like me. And so I'm not being genuine. And one of the things that you and I really dig deep into in Never Any Referrals, by the way, is that there are ways to succeed no matter what your personality style is, because we're all different. There's no right or wrong around behavior. We just have to understand who we are and how we convey the message while being authentic to ourselves so that people experience the real us.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's it. And so, to just nail this down before we move on, because this is the foundational, you're going to hear us, refer back to it a number of times, is if I go back to this, if I were to say my 3 things I've got to get my head around is this. It's what is my plan to convey logically to my database what's happening on the market, what that means for them in the market to be that trusted advisor so that I hit that point. What is my routine? What is my strategy to make sure that they know that they're cared about, that I'm not just an economics reporter who sends them data and numbers, and yet they really feel that I have their care and concern. And then Tammy, this, as you said, to your point, we do deal with this in session 2 of Never Ending Referrals, because behaviorally we got hangups. I'm a high assertive, and for me, the authentic piece was years ago when I first started my real estate career. Somebody said, Steve, just be everybody's best friend and you'll get a lot of referrals and you'll make a lot of money. Well, my response was, I got 4 friends. I don't need any more friends. I need buyers and sellers. And of course, that was my high assertive. That was my high D talking. And my high D didn't want to have small talk with all these people. And then, of course, you guys that are high socials out there, you struggle with the fear of rejection or the fear of not being liked. And so we have to find this way,
right,
to do it. I'm going to say our way, Tammy.
It is our, yeah.
And if I were a behavioral Jedi master, I would be completely in sync with the behavior of every person I was talking to. And yet as your database gets larger, that's tough to really know your database behaviorally that well. And yet if you get yourself figured out, you'll be more versatile and adaptable in time.
That's
so
right.
Tammy, let's go into this. I'm going to go back to our slide deck. And as we dive into this, I'm going to give you a number, and we're going to come back to the number in just a little bit. But the number is, I want you to write it down. It's 700. And we're going to introduce you to a little something called the 700 challenge. And by the way, if your database is already at 700 true connected contacts, people that they know you have a 2-way relationship, congratulations, because you're well on your way to what we're going to talk about as $1 million database. The real $1 million database is 1,000 contacts. And we'll talk about how we do that in just a bit. And yet there's a foundational 700 that we want to make sure that you have. And so I want you to just think about that number. We're going to introduce you to the 700 challenge in a minute. And Tammy, to grow a database or to have one give us a high return, one of the things we're going to have to reconcile is what?
We've got to talk to them right? It's the conversation is the relationship. There's a great book out there called Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. And she says the relationship is the conversation. And, when I think about this, guys, that is when we talk to people and we get in a relationship with people because they hear us, they experience us, that is the linchpin that makes everything else that we do work, meaning the emails, the text messages, the social media, the things that we send out. All of those things really don't work very effectively without actually having the relationship. And, when I think about this, Steve, one of the things that you've heard me say is, having conversations never hurt a relationship. Lack of conversations does. And so when there's a lack of conversations, that is what allows someone else, another real estate agent, to come in and take a relationship that maybe we feel like we have because they had a previous transaction with us, and we're awesome because every single one of you are awesome. And at the same time, we know that when the National Association of Realtors goes out and they do the polling, that over 90% of them say they'll work with their real estate agent again. So like as an industry, we have really, really come a long way, and we're doing really fantastic. And yet only 12 to 18% do. And it's because if the conversation is the relationship and we're not having the most important part of the entire relationship process happen, then it opens the door to someone else stepping in. And so we've got to really, we've got to have the conversations, meaning we have to have a reason compelling enough for us to call, meaning that we feel like we're giving value to people. And at the same time, we many times lack a system that keeps us consistently and systematically in touch with people because time goes so fast. I mean, can you believe it's 2023? What? Right? So time goes really, really fast.
I hate it when that happens, but I'll tell you, and yet it does. And so let's talk about the system, and then we're going to come back and talk about how to grow the database. And because we want to get 700 first, and we'll talk about why 700 in just a moment. But I want to get into the system. And Tammi, what's the system called?
R2D2? No, it's DTD2.
That's DT.
DTD2. Do the database too. And by the way, how many of you just in the chat are familiar with DTD2, whether it be through Bold? It originated with Never Ending Referrals, by the way, and we donated it to Bold. Listen, look at all this, right? And now it's been spread out. And it is this foolproof system, Steve. Like it's ingenious, actually, right? It is ingenious. And it's literally taking 2 letters of the alphabet by last name and reaching out to those folks each week. So with 26 letters in an alphabet, and we call 2 letters of the alphabet by last name each week, then it's 13 weeks to call through the database. And miraculously enough, there are 13 weeks in a quarter. So it really ensures that we're having the most important piece of the whole puzzle happen every single quarter. And that's that one-to-one conversation, whether it's in person or it's over the phone. And here's the thing. If I were to ask all of you out there, how many of you, show of hands, feel like your database is a train wreck, like whoop, whoop, coming into the station? Right? Here's the thing. You can search a database by last name and actually still pull them up, even if they're not categorized, if they're not clean. Your database is a mess. You don't have to have it all cleaned up in order to do this. And that's another beautiful part about it all.
Well, and it's just, here's the thing. We've learned, in fact, there were studies done when they were working on the rewrite of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I remember Jay Papasan being on stage at Mega Tech back then when they first started to do the research. And he said, we've determined that the most important contact you make with your database is the conversation. You can strip away email, and you can strip away direct mail. He goes, I wouldn't, because they're important. And yet the one missing ingredient that gets people the high return potentially on their database is the conversation. It is the one most important ingredient. And as you said, makes everything else work. Now, Tammi, let's go back to this for a minute, because I want to make sure y'all caught this. And I'm going to go back up to my screen share. And right now, this week happens to be B&E week. So that means everybody in your database whose last name begins with B or begins with E, well, they get a phone call this week, and they get at least a phone call attempt. And we reach out, and ideally, Tammi, well, first, let's go through some of the benefits of doing this. I know that when we introduced this to Bold, we started hearing back from the Bold coaches, and they said, "You won't believe what happened in my room." And what's the "you won't believe" that we hear so much?
Well, there are many reasons to follow DTD2, everyone. And one of them is staying out of call bias, right? I mean, everybody's done it. I've done it. You've done it, Steve. I'm sure everyone here has done it. And it's where we either look at a name on our phone, we look at a name in our database, and we prejudge, right? We make assumptions that they're either A, not going to be happy to hear from us, B, they're not going to pick up the phone, or, oh my gosh, maybe we didn't end on such a great note with our transaction, or it's been too long. Fill in the blank. And for whatever reason, that bias that we carry in our mind stops us from calling. And so when you follow DTD2, we are going to encourage every single one of you. It is the system. And if they're in your phone and they have a last name this week that starts with B or E, they're in your database, they get the phone call, they get the touch. You let them be the judge of whether or not they're happy to hear from you or they pick up the phone. One of the things that Steve and I would hear repeatedly in Bold rooms, as well as the other Bold coaches, were that folks would come in and say, "Oh my gosh, I stayed out of call bias. I reached out and I called someone. I didn't think they'd be happy to hear from me. And you know what? They were like, I can't believe you called. You'll never believe what we're getting ready to do." And we heard it time after time after time after time. And it's just where timing meets opportunity, and you show up. And so guys, subscribe to that. And here's the other reason, and I think this is really important to share. When you and I are talking about $1 million database, it's about being able to look at a database with certainty, meaning that when we look in and we dig deeper into this 700 challenge that you and I are going to talk about with everyone, that on January 1st, I can look at my database and say, okay, you know what? I know that I have 500, 700, 800, whatever the number is, connected contacts, meaning people that know me, not just names in the database. And when I know that, and I'm willing to reach out and talk to them, then I know that I can get that 10% or better. By the way, we know people that get way better than that, of a return on the database. However, here's the thing, everyone. If we have 500, 700 people in the database that are connected contacts, meaning we know them, and yet we're not willing to call them all, I really can't look at my database and know where my first 50 or 70 deals are coming from, because it's not really accurate.
There you go. Well, I want to go to another point. Mercedes puts in here in the chat, 3 attempt approach, and somebody asked about leaving a voicemail. And yeah, let me touch on that all real quick. And Mercedes, thanks for bringing up the 3 attempt approach. This is the vital, critical part. One of the other real attributes of working this system, Tammi, is it gives you a beginning and end each week. If I know this week is B and E, we start our calls to our B's and our E's, and that's my entire focus as far as my database goes this week. Unless I'm having a big event and we have to promote further, but that's my focus. And so let's say in my B and E group, let's say I have a 700 person database and I have 50 people in my B and E's. And so that might be about right. And on Monday, today, I start dialing my B and E's, and I'm only probably going to catch 15 people. And so, and by the way, that's 30% of my B and E group. Well, on Wednesday, I'm going to make another attempt. Now, what I did on the Monday call, I left a voicemail for the 35 I didn't talk to. And I said, "Hey, it's Steve over at Keller Williams. I was checking in with you. You guys have been on my mind. I trust all is well. Also had a quick business question for you. No need to call me back. I know everybody's crazy busy right now, getting their year started. Feel free to call me. You know the number, but otherwise, I'll just reach out to you later in the week. Take care." Now, Tammi, I did something there. There's a little pro tip in there that I want to make sure that we communicate to them. What's the pro tip?
making it okay for them not to call you back. And it's just because we're all so busy. And you know, we've all done it, right? We get a message and we forget to call back. And then when that person does call you, you're like, right? And it's kind of uncomfortable. So make it okay for them not to call back, because you're going to reach back out later in the week.
You got it. Well, and here's the thing. So I call Wednesday to the other 35, Tammy. So now let's say out of that 35, I talk to 15 more. We're going to talk to more percentage wise because they're expecting my call. And if I talk to another 15, well, that's now 30 of my 50. That's 60%. Thursday, maybe in the afternoon, you know, early evening, I'm going to call the remaining 20. And let's say I talk to 10 of those. Now, by the second time, I didn't bother with a voicemail. I'm just doing what I said I would. I attempted. And I make the third attempt on Thursday, and I talk to 10 of the remaining 20. Now I've talked to 80% of my database, my B&E group, 80% versus 30% if I made one attempt. How much more opportunity is going to be created to either gain a referral or deepen a relationship when talking to 80% instead of 30%? This is one of the powerful little attributes of working this, rather than just loading people in a dialer and blasting through them, is just incrementally. And by the way, you know, we're going to give you some conversations today. You know, we'll give you a download here in just a bit. And this recording will be available for you to go back to. That are some of the conversations you can have. And here's the deal, Tammy. If I've got 13 weeks to work through my database, I only need one conversation for 13 weeks. I can use the same one. And I'm sure in what we're going to give them today, there's going to be a couple there. But then, you know, again, then developing those soft skills on how to do this really well. You know, this is what we help you with, you know, in Never Ending Referrals. Now, Tammy, so DTD2 is your secret sauce. And let's talk about growing a database, because our stated goal in Never Ending Referrals is that you get a 10% return on your database and you grow it by 250 or more in the next 12 months. Now, Tammy, 250 or more, that's like how many a day?
One.
Like one every business day. And you're going, okay, well, even that, how am I going to get one, you know, every business day? And, you know, and I think there's the simple ways is, you know, we go through several strategies. We're going to go through a business to business strategy before we're done today. And let's just get creative though, because people have opportunities in their everyday life to create new contacts that can go in a database, and we're just missing opportunity. Give us an example. Where can we add to our database?
Oh, goodness. I mean, just in life, you know, I think about everywhere that you go in a day. We're creatures of habit. So there are probably things that you do on a routine basis. And, you know, Steve, we're a world of convenience, right? So we don't get out of the car for things. We drive through to things. I mean, just by getting out of the car and putting yourself in front of people, wearing your name tag, wearing, you know, some logo wear, everywhere you go can be a conversation starter. You know, one of the things that you know, I've shared multiple times, my husband has an enormous Starbucks habit. And I said, okay, so how do we get Starbucks to start paying us for him to do real estate, right? So I said, okay, so go sit in Starbucks, and there's a couple of things that you can do. And by the way, this works really great. Number one, you know, get one of those little acrylic signs or just a piece of cardstock and put it on the table, sit by yourself, get yourself a latte, open up your computer, log on to the Wi-Fi, and on that little sign, just write something like, ask me about the real estate market. Now, believe it or not, people will stop and ask you about the real estate market. You'll want to do this by yourself, or they'll think that someone else already took you up on it and is sitting there. Right? You can do the same thing for lunch. Go sit in a Panera, sit where people are so that you are seeing and meeting people, right? I've seen people, Steve, buy $100 gift cards, give them to the barista and use up the card as people are coming through the line, and have the barista just say, hey, it's on the realtor over there, you know, today. And you will start conversations. We make it harder than it has to be.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I heard this one from Jason Abrams, which I thought was so cool. he's going, anybody, he was in the class. He goes, anybody love to play golf in here? He goes, why don't we make our business better suited to our joys? You know, instead of having it be such such hard work, you know, how do we fit it into our joyful things in our life? He goes, if you love golf, well, start playing golf 3 times a week, you know, but just only do 1 time a week with your buddies or your pals or your friends. And then the other 2 times have the starter put you with a group of 3 that doesn't have a 4th, and do that twice a week. And you've got 6 potential relationships, you know, that you can put into your database. In fact, you can use the 5-star approach with the folks in your golfing group, because they might be professionals or business people as well. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And somebody asked, you know, a moment ago, is can my assistant do my DTD2 for me? I want to say this is about deepening the relationship, you know, and you creating a real where they know that they're cared for. Now, if you get a really big database, then you have ISAs or somebody that's like an account rep. And you know, my top 300 or 400, 500, I own.
That's right.
And I've got such a big business and I'm so busy, because once it gets to the $1 million status and it's getting bigger, you're going to take care of your core. And then, right. And then you're going to have somebody that supports you. And this happens, and this is a new segment we're adding to Never Ending Referrals. It is this whole $1 million database. And if I'm doing it through others, what does that look like as well? And the important piece to remember is if you do have anybody ever call for you, they don't say, hey, it's Tabitha over at Tammi Juengst office. They say, Tabitha, you're on my screen, so I'm calling you out here. So there you go. And then they go, hey, this is Tabitha. Tammi asked me to give you a call. So you're always doing business in that person's name. The person that's calling, it becomes critical that you set it up that way. Else they're just building a relationship with Tabitha, and they don't know that you had any part necessarily of making that happen. So Tammi, I want to go into this 700 challenge for just a second and share with y'all what this is, and then we're going to get into some conversations. Now I'm gonna do poor man's PowerPoint on this because it's fun. So there you go. And then I want you to think about this. And so 330 million is the US population, roughly. I think they're saying 335 now. The average household size is 2.53. So Tammi, that means there's 130 million households in the United States. Now, those total 130 million households, 65% own their home. And so that means we've got roughly 84 million owned households. Now, here's the fun math. 84 million households, one of the missions we're on is to find 120,000 real estate agents that will build a database of no less than 700 owned households. And when we do that, we'll have every owned household covered with 700. Yeah, now there's going to be some overlap, of course. And yet with 700 households in your database, then the real estate agent is back in control of our industry, not the third parties, not everybody else who's selling you leads for 35 and 40%. I get a little cranky about that, you know, and I'm going, when we can own it and make an investment of no more than 10% of GCI to own the relationship, it's foolish on us to be out there paying 35 or 40%. Now, so 700, Tammi, if you get a 10% return on your database, 700 is got you to 700,000. And so the other part of the population that doesn't own a home, we're going to say, identify those people. So the other 300 in your database are who are the people that don't own a home, so that you've got that segment of the population as well. Here's a statistic. Tammi, there's how many people, millennials between 28 and 38, how many people are those? Like,
I have no idea.
50 million. Yeah, you know, millennials between 28 and 38, and only 34% of them own a home.
There you go.
You know, and so what is the target demographic maybe that you might have people that don't own a home, but you've built a relationship with? anyway, the bottom number we're looking for is get to 700 fast households.
Mhm.
Then find the next 300. They can be owned household, but also what about those people who are going to be those people that can do, 3-4 homes with you over time because they're just starting their home ownership journey, their investment journey. You can do multiple transactions. And maybe that's workshops for first-time home buyers that you do. And maybe you put out a message. Did you know you could still get 5% interest rates? And they're going, huh? You can't. Yeah, you can. With negotiation and buying down the rate or builder incentives, those things are still available today. So I throw that out there as a challenge because there's so much we have to get purposeful about, Tammi, and really as an industry, and it really is about being purposeful with our relationships. And, I go back to way, there's a market center doing DTD2. They were doing the Never-Ending Referrals thing at their market center. But that 700 challenge, take it on. Let's get you to 700 first and make that happen. And here's one of these pieces, Tammi. If I'm going to really deliver the logic, I gotta have a touch campaign. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do is this, and we'll show you the way in Never-Ending Referrals. And if you need help with this, and ideally it's 2 monthly direct mail touches. And it's market stats, it's community interest, what's going on in your community. Maybe it's a monthly e-newsletter with an economic update and evidence of success. So there's 2 touches a month. There's 1 touch a month. Those 2 make 36 when you take it annually. And then when I do my DTD2, Tammi, I've got 40 touches. Now, by the way, add 1 more email and I got a 52 touch campaign, Tammi. I'm dripping on their forehead every single week so that when they think of real estate, they think of who?
They think of me. And Steve, on that note, and I know from doing Bold long enough, even talking about this, when we would talk about bringing all these touches in, that our mind can go to, whoa, that is a lot. And I'm going to challenge you all to think about it differently. When we look for something on the internet, what happens, right? It shows up on the side of our screen and it follows us around because of what AI does. And so we're seeing those things like this. Our brains are very accustomed to seeing things like this. It's why commercials play over and over again. And my question is always, is even 52 enough once a day? I don't know, right? Please don't overthink it and think that that's too many because it's probably not.
Yeah. And when we think about that and what does that look like? And, Tammi, it's one of the things we put in place in our market centers is something we call Auto Connect, where we have content committees that get together and develop content. And, here's an example right here. This is a community postcard that goes out every month. And now it's kind of a Texas thing, guys, of course, armadillo on a porch. And yet it's got, what's going on, events in the area. So it's a really nice little, touch. And then when it gets to the, here's another version of it. And, then you got, the quarterly newsletter that goes out that's got real estate interpreted. It's got, graphs and information. It's got data on all our sub-markets that's here on the back where it's trending. And this is a matter of really going out and working that positioning angle to be that trusted advisor, right? To build the logic. We know what's going on in the market and, combine direct mail with email. Because here's the thing, Tammi, Constant Contact, MailChimp, all of them say that business email has a 13 to 17% open rate. Now, if your relationship has been built through the conversations, your open rate maybe doubles to maybe 130%. It doesn't go to 50% usually, or even 100%. And so having a multi-channel way of communicating with your database becomes vital so that you're making those little taps on the forehead. But Tammi, we said we would give them some conversations. What we want you to leave with today is number one, is go back to that trust triangle and understand I've got to deliver on these points. And if I get my strategy, and this is something we help you with in Never-Ending Referrals to help you get that strategy on each of these points, you're going to win. And Megan, let's go ahead and put in the chat a couple of things. We're going to put in a link to, number one, the DTD2 schedule. So you've got the schedule. And then Megan, if you'll also put in the chat, we had in our market center last Monday, we had what we call Mad Monday. And we had some scripts here at the San Antonio office that we put together for the group, and one of our trainers was running Mad Monday. And we're going to give you those scripts right there. Tammy's got them in her hand. We're going to put that in there as well. And then we're going to give you one more powerful script in just a moment. But Tammi, we got to role model this one for them, because I think there's so much power in this. It may be one of the conversations they choose to put to work right away in their business. And you want to do that?
Sure.
Yeah, let me make sure I didn't forget. So this little guy right here, you see him just looking up, and he just moved to, North Carolina, where Tammi is. And he's going, oh my God, I don't have a plumber. I don't have a financial planner. I don't have a dentist. I don't have a mechanic. I got teenagers. I better get an auto repair person. They just realized when they moved that their life has become undone. And, one of the things, what did Gary say at family reunion way back when?
That there was no reason Angie's List existed. They shouldn't be paying to subscribe to something like Angie's List. They should be calling us. And, and I know you and I talked about it. It was like bonk right on the head. We know to send them things that have to do with real estate, landscapers, roofers, carpet, all the things that have to do with their home, we're very accustomed to doing. What we're not used to doing, and we weren't really thinking around, is how do we become their lifestyle concierge, right? So that we are their Angie's List. And when they need to know where to go for date night, or where to go get a really cool cake made for their kid's birthday, or get my nails done, my hair done, all those things, are we teaching them to call us? Because when we become that for our people, boy, that's where you get that's Steve, my realtor, right? And they start sharing those things that you do that take the relationship over and above. And now you're teaching them to call you, right? Which is really cool.
Yeah. And actually, I just realized, Tammi, the Mad Monday scripts has the script that we're about to cover in it. So Megan, you're not going to need to put that in there. Yet, let's get into this, Tammi. We call this the 5-star script. And this whole business to business opportunity, if I'm looking to grow my database, these people want to know me, right? I know the people coming to town. And so position well, this is one of the best strategies for me to grow my database, 150, 200 people. And so I'm going to make the call to Tammi, who's one of my clients. And here we go. We'll model this for you. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Tammi, Steve Schlueter. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Steve. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, it hardly seems New Year. We're a whole week into it, right? But hey, I've just been thinking about you and Bruce. You guys been on my mind. Wanted to call and wish you Happy New Year. Also, had a quick business question for you in a minute. But first, give me a little update on the Juengst clan. What's new in your world?
Oh gosh, I don't know that anything is new, right? We are head down and moving forward into the new year. Travel is our thing. So, so we did plan a couple of trips over the holidays for the upcoming year. Other than that, we are business as usual.
What's the next stop on your trip journey?
Costa Rica.
Oh, fantastic. I have not been. Is this a first time, or have you been before?
It is a first time. All
right. Well, I'm going to tap you for some guidance on that. We have talked, that's made our short list, and we haven't been either. So if it's okay with you, I'll follow up with you after your trip.
Absolutely.
Oh, sounds great. Hey, Tammi, let me tell you why I was calling today. We're working on a little project here at the team, and we're, as you can imagine, Tammi, as a real estate agent, I've got people moving to the area all the time from other parts of the country, and they've left everything behind. I mean, imagine moving across the country and you don't have a dentist anymore, a hairdresser, or a nail tech, or auto mechanic. You left all those things behind. And, we thought we would build a directory for our friends and clients, that would be a resource. And we figured the best way to get the best people was to ask about the experiences you guys are having out there to find the very best of the best to put in our directory. And I'm just curious, in the last, 2, 3, 4 weeks, anybody just blown you away with a really great customer experience that you could share with us? Maybe 5-star, it was really awesome.
Wow. You know what? We actually did. We reached out to an electrician actually and had a whole bunch of new lighting done, and it's fantastic.
Oh, wow. And what's your electrician's name?
Bob Smith.
Bob Smith. Okay.
I'm real original today.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Sparky. So there you go. So see what I did there? Okay. And so, and she gives me, I'd say, well, hey, would love to include Bob in our directory. Sounds like the kind of person we would want to have, be able to send to others. Do you happen to have Bob's contact information? I can reach out.
I
So she
do.
gives me the contact information. And then I'll call Bob later, and I'm going to ask Tammi, say, Tammi, would it be okay when I reach out to Bob that I mentioned you sent me his way?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. Tammi, another place you might be able to help me is, I know we got this around October. I guess people had, oops, we're getting a little background. I know people were doing their taxes who filed later, extended, and we were getting requests for CPA. And, I honestly don't have a really CPA I feel confident in referring. Do you happen to have an introduction in that space that you might be able to, introduce us to?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I have one that I feel is awesome, Steve. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. I know our network being what it is, that I'll locate one. So let me ask you this then: when I do find that person, would you like me to connect you with them? Because I know with our network, I'm going to find that person. Would that be helpful for you?
It would. Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, as soon as I make that connection, Tammi, I don't know, it might be a few days, might be a week before I find that person. As soon as I do, I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay. That'd be great.
Perfect. Hey, thanks for the assist. Hey, by the way, one last thing before I let you go. The market's been a little strange. You're probably hearing a lot of things out about the market. And I just want you to know there's kind of a window of opportunity where there's some unique opportunities for the right people in the market. We've got builders doing big negotiations with even interest rates in the 4s. Right now, they're buying down. We've got some of the best selection we've had in a while. And so if you know anybody that's, looking to buy, there's actually a unique window of opportunity, or even sell. We still retained a lot of value. Just let me know, because a lot of people are confused about the market. The national media is saying one thing that's not necessarily the local. So if you know anybody we can serve, just let me know. Anybody on your radar that we should think about maybe being able to help?
Oh gosh, Steve, possibly our youngest son this year.
Oh, wow.
And yes, he is.
And then we would get into that, and
Right.
and we'd make the connection and set up an appointment if it were appropriate. And then I just wrap up. So Tammi, one last thing before you go. I failed to ask you. I know you were working at home for the longest time. Are you still working out of the house, or are you back in the office now?
No, I am back working, still at home, and Bruce is actually back in the office.
Ah, okay. Is that working out good for you? You enjoying being at home?
I do very much so.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's a whole new world, isn't it? It's kind of a whole new world.
Yes.
Hey, well, thank you so much for your help.
I was the store manager.
Okay. Megan,
There
I think we got him muted. And then so we've wrapped up the call, and there you go. And so Megan, go ahead and put that 5-star script in there. However, if you have that queued up and can put that 5-star script conversation in there, so they've got it handy in one document and can file it accordingly, that would be great. I do want to go back to Tammi. Let's peel that one back a little bit before we move on, because there's some big nuggets in there.
Well, that is one of my most favorite conversations to have with the database, and it's so much value that you are adding to them, and it starts because you're creating something that is for me. and for your future clients. And by golly, I could share it with my friends, all those things. I know that you're a real estate agent, and yet you're creating something and taking time to build something for me. So that in itself is valuable. One of the other things that you did was you asked if, when you reached out to my electrician, if you could use my name. And that's really, really important, everyone. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, think of the relationship equity that he just created between my electrician and myself. My electrician's going to be like, yeah, like I love her. She just connected me to a real estate agent who would like to put me on their 5-star concierge list and not charge me to do it. Right. So they just connected me with someone to help me build my business. And it's just because they're looking to serve their clients and their community. Number two, when Steve reaches out to my electrician, that's not a cold call. That's a warm call. We have a client in common. And Tammy said that you were like the bomb.com, and she just had an amazing experience with you. And you were someone that I absolutely should be speaking with and referring my current and my future clients to. So that's amazing. And then we take it one step further. And by the way, guys, you can fill in CPA with something else, depending on what time of year you're doing it. This time of year is a great time of year to use CPA, and yet make that second ask something that not everyone's going to have a 5-star experience around, right? So that you can continue to call through the network, which, by the way, is really important that you say that, Steve, not database. I'm not going to call my database. Nobody wants to be part of somebody's database. So we're going to continue calling the network. And then what could happen, Steve, if you call through your entire network, meaning your entire DTD2, looking for that 5-star CPA, what could happen?
Well, here's the thing. I'll probably get it, that 5-star CPA, within 2 of my 2-letter groups, right? It'll happen because it's a big enough database. And yet I'm not going to stop, because I'm also looking for people that have the need for a great CPA, so I can play connector. And so because I keep digging into that, maybe I'll go for 6 weeks on CPA, and I wind up with 3 CPAs that are introductions for me. And I wind up with 13 people who could use a 5-star CPA. So here's the great thing, Tammy. When I reach out to the 3 CPAs, I've got 4+ referrals for each one in hand to launch that relationship with. And you talk about a law of reciprocity fuel. That's massive. So asking for that introduction and then being able to provide that back, I'll call Tammy back, say, Tammy, I found one. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to connect you two through email, or would it be okay through text? That way, of course, I get personal cell phone number of the CPA, right?
Right.
And there's a whole process we go through in our business to business section on how now we take these business to business folks, and they're not just business relationships. They are part of we're building a tribe of people who will look to us ultimately as their realtor. Even if they have a realtor now, we'll win that game over time, unless it's their son or daughter or, spouse, and yet it's okay to be in a number 2 position as well. And we talk about that in our program. So there you go. That's the 5-star script. Now, Tammy, before we wrap up today, I do want to share with y'all an opportunity. If you got value in what we covered today, we'd like to help you unlock more opportunity in your database. Don't go one more day just cold calling and praying for buyers and sellers. We want you to, be in that position where every January 1, where your first, 36, 50, or 150 transactions are coming from, because you built a business that way. And you took the steps, and these are the steps in our Never Ending Referrals program that we take you through. And Megan, I don't know if you have that where you can throw this in the chat or not. And looks like we got a few loose Lisa's over there. Excellent class, all caps. Thank you, darling. Is we walk you right through how to make this work, how to make it work at an exceptional level. And to be part of our Never Ending Referrals community is $39 a month. Now, by the way, our next live session is actually today at noon Central Time in about 1 hour. Yeah, we have an interview. Who's our interview? We start every session with an interview or a tech session. And who's our interview today, Tammy?
Our interview today is with a rock star agent in his first 5 years. His name is Tony Teutsch, and he was a previous Bold student of mine, and he has just exploded his business in 5 years. And in 5 years, last year he ended as the #3 solo agent in his office of over 300 plus. And so I'm going to be interviewing him in about an hour at the beginning of our never ending referral session. So we do that. The 3 weeks of the month, 2 of those are those live interviews with just superstars like all of you that are just doing something that we can share with our never ending referrals community. And then one of those is actually tech training.
Yeah, and Megan, if you would put the direct link to register in the chat. So if you guys would like to join us and go ahead and get registered, I think they can process you and have you in for noon. And you can join us today. If not, everything's recorded. It's on a portal. We will be sending this recording out. You'll have access to this. It'll be posted on the MAPS YouTube channel, and all that link and everything will go out in the next 24 hours. So be on the lookout. Questions. I mean, if you want to raise your hand, if you've got questions for us, we'll take a couple of minutes to take a couple of quick questions, and then we're going to go get prepped and ready for our noon session. The link is in the chat, but yeah.
Carlos, yes, to answer your question, all of the sessions are on Mondays. We are the first 3 Mondays of every month, and they are at noon Central. From noon to 12:30, we do the first Monday of the month at noon to 12:30 is a tech session with our resident tech guru, KT Temple. And we walk through how to use technology, CRM, social media at a high level. And then the other 2 Mondays, that first half hour, are those interviews with subject matter experts that are in the field. And then the next hour of those sessions are Steve and I walking you through those 8 lessons of never ending referrals.
Yeah. And Natalie, go ahead. Unmute yourself. I know I see your hand up.
Hi, Tammy, you remember, I'm not sure if you remember when you came to our office last year, I started using the DTD2. So this year I do plan on doing a lot more events. My struggle is, how am I incorporating the DTD2 and calling around my events? Because I feel like there's a little overlap. Any recommendations for that?
Yeah, I mean, my experience, but Tammy, I'll let you go ahead and answer, because you guys do a lot of events.
Yes, I would say, well, as you're doing the DTD2, Natalie, just that is your phone call, right? And by the way, if you were doing 1 event a quarter, that could be your quarterly calls. And then you just wrap up those calls the way that Steve did, is just to educate them around the market and how things are going, and make sure that they don't have any confusion, or that you're at least saying, hey, do you have any plans in the next 12 to 24 months? Anything that I should know about to put on my radar? And so your events could just be your DTD2 call. You could incorporate the 5-star script that we just did into that as well. Don't think that your event calls have to be separate from DTD2.
Yeah. And if the window wise it doesn't fit, then you just, wherever you hit that window, you start using that. And you just make a pivot. It just didn't wind up being the same conversation. And yet the question comes up, well, then there's people I might not hit. And so that becomes an additional call with just that purpose. Hey, I know I touched base with you here. We had a business question for you a few weeks ago. Hey, I forgot to mention we got an event coming up, or I wanted to also let you know we have an event coming up. And it just gives you that extra touch, because Tammy, you said it. I don't know if 40 is enough. And so the event gives you a new context for another conversation, Natalie.
Well, and the other thing is too, everyone, our DTD2 schedule is following those 2 letters, and those are the phone calls or the in-person conversations that happen. We also have a text letter each week. So if I didn't reach someone, then, they're going to come back up in the text. Or I could also be texting to remind people of the events, and then making sure I'm having the one-on-one conversations around the market, or if I'm using the 5-star. So you can mix and match that. It's meant so that they hear from you voice to voice 4 times a year, and texting twice a year.
Brenda, go ahead. You got to unmute, Brenda.
I've been in the business for 15 years. I've got probably 2,500, close to 3,000 people in my database. My thing is for the people that I really enjoyed working with them, but it's been years since I called them. You know, how do you make that call? What do you say? They haven't heard from me in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Tammy, you got a favorite on that one? I got one.
I do, Brenda. Trust me when I'm chuckling with you, because that happened to me early on, and I had a coach challenge me to reach out, and it just pushed me so far out of my comfort zone, because it is uncomfortable. You feel like it's been so long. The conversation is just the apology. It's reaching out, and I would call you and I would say, you know, Brenda, if you answer the phone, I'd say, Brenda, oh my gosh, it is Tammi Juengst, and I am reaching out to wish you a happy new year. This is the perfect time to do that, and check in with you, and you will have that conversation. And then I'm gonna say, the other reason I was calling is because I owe you an apology. And they always 100% of the time say, what for? And the apology is just that, you know what? I absolutely lost touch with you, and I am so sorry. Like, I really enjoyed spending time with you, getting to know you, whatever it is, you fill in the blank. And my commitment is, can I make a promise that I'm going to be better at keeping in touch this year as part of my resolution? And it works. It is the craziest thing. And no business is talked about on that conversation unless they ask. Right.
Done it all, like you wouldn't, because I've done the apology call before, like out of, like when I was doing Bold, but could I roll the apology into, you know, hey, while I've got you on the phone, you know, I'm looking to build a business referral, like what Steve is saying.
Oh, yes.
Go into that script.
You can absolutely say, and by the way, you know, one of the things that I have done in my business that I was not doing, you know, when you knew me previously, is I have built out the equivalent of an Angie's List, and call it, you know, Brenda's list, you know, Brenda's A++ concierge list, you know, whatever you want to call it. And I'm here for you. I am a community resource, and I want to make sure that, you know, you're not going out to Google or throwing it out on Facebook. These are people that are on this list strictly because folks like you have said they had a 5-star experience with them, and that's the only way they've been on this list. So, you know, if you need an orthopedic surgeon, feel free to reach out to me if your doctor doesn't have that referral, right?
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, Erna, we're going to take yours and we'll wrap up.
Okay, awesome. I've got 2 questions. And so the first one is, I'm in South Africa, and so I really want to get involved in the program. However, the time is quite late for me in the evening to join those meetings. So is there a different way for me getting a part or being a part of this program then? That's my first question. The second one is, we recently started with the CEO of Keller Williams South Africa, started the first MREA team in South Africa, which I'm in charge of.
Great.
And so what would your advice be for the new agents coming into the team on building their database?
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, I think the bottom line is, you know, a simple introductory conversation is, hey, I just want to let you know, I just made a career change. You know, and so that's the easy dialogue for somebody new coming onto a team. And by the way, I'm associated with a top team, and they can kind of build the value proposition. And then I would develop, you know, campaigns that are just automatic for them. You know, whatever smart plan type options you have, you know, in South Africa, but develop local content and just see to it that their database is operating on it. You know, manage that for them. You know, would probably be some guidance I would give you to make sure that 40 to 52 touch, you know, is happening. And then, you know, it's like David Huffaker. I mean, he leads his team around 300 million, I believe, in sales last year, and leads his team around DTD2, making sure that happens. So if you can get a 40 touch going and get DTD2 embedded in the culture of that, Erna, I think you're going to be doing well.
Congratulations, by the way. And before we wrap up, I'd like to address Sandy's question. Sandy, you had a great question. She said, what if you have a husband and a wife in the database, should you categorize them by first name so that you're not calling them at the same time? And that's such a great question. And the answer is keep them by last name and reach out to both. While they live together, they also have different circles, and they have different circles based on where they work, on kids, sports, hobbies, different things that they belong to. And so when you're asking those questions, believe it or not, they'll be able to go into different data banks in their mind and come up with different people than they do just together. So that's a great question.
Yeah. Again, we do have the link there in the chat if you'd like to join us on the journey. Thank you so much for being with us today. We trust you got great value. And we'd love to have you on the journey on Never Ending Referrals with us, and hang out with us, 3 times a month. We'd love to be your partners in mastering this. See you, folks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, everyone.